experience of our sexuality and our sexual feelings. There's our beliefs that are derived from the Bible and other things that we know, and our sense of who we are. And it takes a while to put all that together. You don't just wake up and have this all of a sudden happen. It takes a while to process that. In fact, the research says it takes multiple years. And as Bethel, we do not control that process for students. Rather, what we do is we support, we guide, we point people toward what we believe to be true, we resource, and we respect. Now, this is not a new concept. This has been part of the tradition of Bethel for a long time. We ask you as students to be in charge of your own growth and maturation process. You are adults, and we expect you to take charge of that. An interesting policy here at Bethel is that chapel is voluntary. We don't force you to go to chapel at the point of a knife and say you have to do this. Rather, we invite you to choose to follow Christ, because that's the way it's supposed to be. Our purpose tonight is not really to debate different views. I am suspicious that there are people with different views in this group, and we have different perspectives on that. And that's really not the purpose of our being together tonight. As Bethel, I think we're pretty clear that we believe that sexual intimacy is designed by God for a marriage between a man and a woman. But our purpose isn't really to defend that, or to critique that, or to argue that, or debate that. There are times we do that, and that's a great thing. I don't think there are any topics that are kind of off limits for us to explore and to discuss here at Bethel, because that's how we grow and learn as scholars. But our purpose tonight really is to listen to some ideas, and to listen to some stories, and to hear how people have experienced life. And to do that, we want to adopt a stance. So this is kind of our stance, and I'd like you to enter into an agreement with me about this stance. We call it convicted civility. Conviction means that we hold to our mature perspectives for good reasons. So we all have our viewpoints, and we can challenge each other to have those viewpoints for good, biblical, and scientific and other reasons. And then civility means that we choose to engage each other in a positive way. So we respect each other's perspectives. There are some folks who experience same-sex attraction, and they want to process that same-sex attraction in a confidential context. And so part of what we as Bethel do is we create space where people who are working on their issues and thinking about their questions and seeking to understand who they are and how that fits with their beliefs, and if they want to do that in a confidential way, we do that. We respect that and give them a place to do that. So as we come to this conversation tonight, I want to tell you that we are, and particularly I am, as your provost, I am committed to straight talk and respectful dialogue. So we're not off limits. We can challenge each other for our reasons, but we want to be respectful. I want to hold Bethel's stance regarding sexual intimacy, and also hold to Bethel's stance regarding the respect for others. And what this means, among other things, is that we are 100% opposed to any kind of ostracism or bullying or name-calling that happens because people have different perspectives on this. We are people of the book, the Bible. And as people of the book, we believe in sexual ethics, and we try to derive our beliefs about the world from the Scripture. And to be people of the book means that we are going to be respectful and loving of different points of view. There was a man named Stan Grenz who was a friend, a theologian, and he wrote a book that he described our stance. He called it Welcoming and Not Affirming. We believe in welcoming, and that's important. Now, in welcoming, that doesn't mean you necessarily agree with the other person at every particular point. So that means tonight that our agenda is really about listening and hearing stories. We promise to listen attentively to the stories. We may disagree with the person's interpretation, but we're still going to love each other through that process. And if you hold Bethel's view of Scripture, then you will respect people who don't agree with you on these matters. So tonight we're going to build a community of convicted civility by listening to each other carefully. Now the plan for our time this evening is that we're going to listen to 4 stories. We're going to give them about 10 minutes each. And do I have a timekeeper here somewhere? There we are, over there. Okay. We're getting organized, so we're going to try to stay on task with the telling of the stories. I know your personal story is worth more time than that, but we're going to take 10 minutes per story. And then when we finish those stories, we're going to take a quick break. And if some of you have received a card and you'd like to write a question, we'll seek to answer some of those questions. And at the end, we'll have a traveling mic and maybe take a few live questions, if you will, as well. And my belief is that each person would be willing to answer and respond to questions. I would be willing to answer and respond to comments and questions. And all of us here together are committed to the idea that if there's something you want to ask, we'll try to respond in a respectful way. To the 4 people who are going to talk tonight, and I'm not going to introduce them as they go along, will be Poole, then Cam Bowman, Julia Burkstaller, and Mark Ettinger. And we're seated in the right sequence here, so you can see we're well organized. This is a well-built machine, and we will start by asking Poole to come. Please come and share your story.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Before I really start, my name is Natalie Poole, and I am a transgender lesbian. But I really wanted to find the term transgender because it means a lot of different things. For our purposes, I'm going to define transgender as transcending male and female gender, and then expressing one's gender in the way that one lives in accordance with oneself. So, for me, I grew up in a very conservative household that actually concretely stated what male and female was. My sister was actually a little bit of a tomboy, and this was not okay with my parents. They let it be, but my father always was mentioning that she should wear skirts more often, stuff like that. And this obviously sends a very confusing message to a transgender individual who believes that, well, she looks in the mirror, she sees a male, but she knows that she is not. I remember when I was 7 years old, it was the first time I learned that it was possible to change one's gender. It was reduced to the idea of sex change surgery, and I was fascinated, but that fascination usually does not go over so well with many people, especially at 7. So I remember trying to talk to an older church friend about it, and I was met with disgust and hatred. My understanding of myself is that I shut down, I retreated into a shell, and I protected myself because there was simply no way that I could survive in the environment being who I was. My next concrete memory of any transgender feelings were when I hit puberty. I was 13 years old, starting to think that, I wanted to be a woman, but I wasn't. And it was incredibly difficult, and at the same time, you're going through puberty, so you deny it. You're like, well, I am attracted to girls, so it's probably just expressing that it wasn't. Get to high school, still going on. I was in an online gaming community and I was expressing those feelings, and everyone thought I was crazy and thought I was doing it for some reason, or that go on to list characteristics and, oh, but you don't have these characteristics of a female, you have these characteristics of a male, so you must be male. No. I don't know how I got through, but I did. just passed through, and I made it to college here at Bethel. Freshman year, wasn't too excited about living on a floor with all males, having 2 males in a 165 square foot space. It's a very, very interesting thing, especially when you think you're female. Yeah. But after that, during my freshman year, I was academically dismissed from Bethel. And I had a summer to reboot and process everything. And then I spent a semester at Northampton Community College. And it was there that I finally put all the pieces together, accepted myself for who I was. And I came out almost immediately. Once I put all the pieces together, I told my friends, I'm like, this is what I'm feeling. I later found out from 1 or 2 of them that they thought it was just a phase, that it would pass. Oh, if they only knew what was coming. It got stronger and stronger as time progressed, and eventually said, you can no longer call me by my first birth name. Call me Poole or Natalie, but Michael is dead. And spring of that year, my sophomore year, I came out to my parents around Easter time, so it's been about a year. I think they also thought it was just a phase. I think they're still hoping it's just a phase. But at the time, I was still in male clothing. I hadn't done any physical changes to my body. And so they were okay just letting me be, letting me process. But I didn't go home for Easter. I didn't go home for the summer except for the 2 weeks that I was required to go home at the end of the summer. And I told them that it would be my last weeks in the house because I was going to start to transition my junior year, this year, and start dressing for who I felt I was, and that I would eventually be undergoing hormone therapy to take the testosterone out of my body and replace it with estrogen, which would result in many of the physical changes that I needed to be who I was. It's very difficult to essentially say, I had to say my goodbyes to at least my grandfather and possibly my grandmother, who I have not seen since that time. But I hadn't told my grandparents yet, and I was going to come out to them in a letter because it was not safe to verbally come out to them face to face. And I know that my grandfather will pass before I see him, and I won't even be able to attend his funeral. I've also had to discuss funeral arrangements with my father, if I can attend his funeral. It's a very interesting thing when you're discussing that before the time comes and talking about maybe not even going to your grandfather or father's funeral. But there was also a lot of confusion that I liked males, but they thought it was born out of a homosexual desire. I wanted to do that, and they're still processing these things. It's going to be a long journey ahead. Thank you for your time.
I'm Cam Bowman. Raise your hand if you know me. I graduated in December, but I was supposed to graduate in 2010. Okay, so with another male, and I didn't hear about this until when I was in 6th grade. But starting in 1st grade, that's when I started thinking that I was gay. That's when I started playing with my little friends along with me. Escalated. because I was very much emotionally abused by my other peers, and so I didn't feel like I fit in with all the guys, and so that's the only way that I felt a belonging to, is just, more of like the play or any of that. So here comes me in like junior high. My mom catches me watching porn at 6 in the morning, because back then with the dial-up. She knocks on the door and I immediately go into the preset mode. Okay, delete, okay, turn it down. And then that's when I had the first of many talkings that I was watching gay porn. Okay, let's transition on. Okay, sorry, my mind is going crazy. Pause. I think my small group that I talked with earlier tonight that helped me think what I'm going to do tonight. Anyway, so I was always a part of the church, but throughout school, with being picked on, I would always go to my church friends, and then they would always start to use me for my things, for my house, for my, because, I was blessed with financial support that way. And so I just kept on doing these more sinful actions with my friends, because that just became so normal for myself to do. So here I am in high school. Raise your hand if you've heard of the camp called Kanakuk Camps. It's a Christian athletic camp. So I went there for 5 years. It was a great place because I went for a month long. I would go and I would experience like this retreat of anybody that would pick on me. Everybody was welcome. It was a great place for being a Christian, because here you are always being pushed in the Word, pushed in activities, and always feeling welcome, which in most churches nowadays, they don't do that. So I'm like, this is great. I have all these friends, so every year I would come back with this new excitement for just getting plugged in and just having this core group of friends that I would talk throughout the year. So on my third or fourth, I think it was my fourth, I told my counselors that I was fooling around at the public gym with adult males since I was underage. They were fine. They talked me through it, what I was going through, and since I was a minor, that was fine. It wasn't fine, but they wouldn't report me. And so I'm like, this is a great place, because now, throughout that entire year, they kept me accountable of what I was going through. And I felt, this is great. This is what I need. I want to just be more open with my life, open with what I'm experiencing, and just being accountable for my actions and why is this wrong. So the next year, I was 18. I just graduated from high school. The top cabin, which is 20, whatever. But so I did the same thing, and I thought, this is such a safe space for myself. I'm with my friends I've known for 5 years. We spent a month long at summer camp with. So I told my counselors. They immediately had to report it to the top counselor, the owner of the camp, which is one of the speakers at Promise Keepers. They made me leave my cabin, either go home or live on the dock with 5 other counselors that worked there, and they made me call my parents and tell them everything that was happening. So here I am with this Christian mindset. Okay, we are all loving of one another. I'm not gonna play around with my cabin mates, because those are my friends. They're my friends. And so here's this time in my life that was just stripped away, that was just taken away of what good Christian people do. Because, hey, aren't we all supposed to love one another, accept one another, and just help one another? But I guess helping for them was to send me away from all my friends and all my support. So I was on the dock, and I had to do a daily Bible study, which was great, with the guy that had 2 lesbian mothers, and they thought that would be great for me. So I started to begin to hate how Christians acted and challenge my Christianity, which is a must, which we all should do. But so here I am calling my parents, making with 3 or 4 of the top people of the camps, since there's 12 of those camps there. On the phone with my parents, and parents are crying or whatever. So at the end of camp, they picked me up, whatever. So here I am coming to Bethel, this really insecure person, since that's what I grew up doing, just internalizing everything. And and not being able to, since a promise was broken at that summer camp that, you know, if you share something with someone, they're going to share it with everybody, which I know for a fact that nowadays it's a lot easier here at Bethel than before, with, you know, being more accepted of the gays and everybody, you know. So here I am at Bethel. I just know the intimacy, since the picking on still happened throughout Bethel, and it all happened with the guys. So I still acted out. I was very active sexually throughout my entire life, from first grade to today. But that doesn't define who I am, you know. We all have these sins, we all have these struggles that we go through, and we all think that it's a big label strapped on our chest, just like, you know, we go to Bethel, here's the Bethel sweatshirt, okay, that defines you, no. So from that time on to now, it's just, a big thing for myself is just think of, you know, we are not made up of labels, we are just human beings, we are one another, we are musicals, we play football, we are, you know, that's a part of who we are. So why can't we just live that from our daily basis and just not be so mean to one another. But so that's me in a nutshell. I am an open person. If anybody wants to actually just sit down and talk, like I said, I graduated from Bethel, and but I'm so open to talk. So, you know, I'm here.
First, I'd just like to thank you all for being here. It really means a lot to have the support of you guys, even if it's here, just wondering and not sure about what you feel. The conversation and relationships with people is what it's all about in learning. So it's really great that you're here. And I would first just like to point out that this is my first declaration publicly of being gay. And I'm Julia, and I'm gay. But that is not why I'm here today. I am here, when I was asked to do this, I had a lot of conviction about, oh, should I do it, should I not, I don't know what's going to happen, am I going to get egged, I don't know. I wasn't, obviously, I was cheered for it, that's great. Okay, so, but I'm here today for anyone, for you out there who have questions, and even not just about your own sexuality, just in general, if you feel alone or that you don't have any allies or there's no one out there like you, here we are. There are more, obviously, but I just as Cam is, I'm very open. If you ever need to talk, come find me, obviously. I know it's hard to just randomly find a person here, but if you run into me and you say, hey, we should meet up. Anyway, okay, I digress. Breakdown of what I'm going to talk to you tonight. I'm just going to give you a very brief background of my story, very brief. And then I'll kind of go into my experience at Bethel. And there are some negatives, but there are a lot of positives as well. This isn't a bash Bethel experience at all. I'm one of those people that always knew I was gay, but I never understood exactly what to call it or what it was. I didn't know that there was a label for me or how I was feeling and things like that. But I was, you know, raised to think that I should marry a man, and that's what I'm going to do. And so, of course, that was very confusing when I was attracted to girls. That's weird. Okay. So I suppressed it for a long time. I was very much in denial. I never fully accepted or acknowledged the fact that that's what it was until after my senior year of high school. It was the summertime. I had a lot of isolation in that time, and I had a lot of time to reflect. So I went to South Dakota State University my first semester, year and a half of college. So 3 days before I was moving off to college, I came out to my mom and my brother, and the boy that I was dating at the time, because I figured he'd want to know. My mom and my brother, they both were very, I love you, and very accepting, and very, they struggled. They really did struggle, but it wasn't so much a struggle of, oh, I have a gay daughter and a gay sister. It was they struggled because they didn't, life is hard enough, and why should I have to do this too? And that's what my mom would say to me. She just didn't understand. It was just not fair. And while I did feel that way too, I didn't I didn't know that other different. I didn't know different anything. So I was just, this is me. This is life. My mom struggled with a lot of conflicting emotions between, I'm never gonna have grad kids. I'm never gonna see you get married. But I assured her, like, well, I could still do all those things, Mother, someday. You never know. But she went from those conflictions, not knowing what she thought, to eventually saying, I knew before you knew. And that's what she says these days, and she tells people that she knew before I did. And I always joke, like, gee, Ma, you could have let me know sooner. It would have saved me a lot of time. But obviously, it's a process, and I had to figure it out on my own. So now I'll fast forward to just my first semester at college. So 3 days before I came out, and I didn't have a roommate. She decided that she wanted to commute from home last minute, and so they just never replaced. So I was just in this little dorm room by myself, very isolated, and I fell into a very, very, very deep depression. Probably the worst I've ever felt in my life. I felt very alone. I didn't feel like even though I had my mom and my brother on my side, they were still, are you sure? Is it a phase? I don't know, And so I didn't know what to say to them because nothing was changing. I would be lying if I said that I didn't think of suicide and things like that, but I was never too serious about it because I knew that that would only harm my mother and my brother and my whole family and friends because, why should I cause them pain just to relieve my own? That does not make sense to me. So, I prayed a lot. I had a lot of anger at God, a lot of anger. I always had a pretty good relationship with God, and so I just didn't understand why was he doing this to me? Why would he do this? Because it was clearly not what I wanted, and it was unhappy. I did not want to feel that way. So I would pray, change me, and nothing happened. And so I was very bitter. But I soon grew out of that because in that deep depression, in that dark place that I was at, the only thing that brought me out was God. I went to this conference in December, like New Year's Eve after that first semester, and I didn't want to go, of course. I was like, no, I'm not going to this, but my friend dragged me. And it was the most enlightening experience I've ever had. I felt more at peace than I've ever felt in my life, and I basically just fell in love with the Lord all over again. And so that's when I knew that this couldn't be his fault. It wasn't a blame. He wasn't doing this to me to harm me, and those things. And so now kind of fast forward. I transferred to Bethel, and you might think, well, why Bethel? If you're gay and you're at Bethel, why are you here? Which is a good question. It really is. So why I'm here? I fell in love with the Lord, and I knew that I just wanted to live my life serving Him. And I decided to go into social work because I thought, what better way to serve the Lord than actively doing His work? And so I thought, well, I should definitely have a Christian background with that if I want to go out and serve and do God's work. So Bethel community, it's a college, Christian college, good social work program. All right, let's do it. And I just thought, Christians, God, love, they're all together, and acceptance, and everyone loves each other, and it wasn't always that feeling here, unfortunately. It was mostly, I was just very, I did not enjoy my first semester here, but I take part in the blame in that. I had a very closed mind coming here in some ways because I just assumed that no one would accept me. Even if I made those friends and took that chance with someone, they probably would end up just not loving me anyway once they found out that part of me. And so I isolated myself once more and did not know what to do and hated it here for the most part. I would just come to school just for class and then leave immediately. I was a transfer student, so that's another thing. I was also a commuter, so that's another thing is how it's hard to get connected with people, and it's hard to get connected with allies. Because it's not like you guys walk around like, hey, I accept you if you're gay. So, if only it worked that way. And some more negative experiences with Bethel, just kind of, having to sit in class and hear comments of people. But I have an immense amount of respect for those people because they're asking questions. And I think it's dangerous when you stop asking questions. That is when it gets harmful. Yeah. And that's when you lose room for growth. You don't grow if you're not asking questions. And so those people, even though they were making comments that really did not feel very good, I respected them. I respected them. And I really am glad that they brought it up because it's better than not talking about it at all. Basically, I was touring Bethel, This was before I started here, so I felt very uncomfortable during the tour. I remember thinking, oh gosh, what did I do? Why am I coming here? And then they're like, okay, let's go meet your advisor. And I'm like, oh God, what should I say? And I walked up to the hall and I saw this GLBT safe place sign on her door. And that's why I came to Bethel. That sign right there. Yeah, and so it's so amazing that that was there, and that is the reason I'm here today, because of that social work department. They are my backbone. They've made this experience here the most positive it could possibly be, honestly. And I hope that we can get more of those signs up, because who knows how many kids are touring and do not want to come here until they see a sign like that, and how many people feel completely alone until they see a sign like that. And I told the professor, and I told her thank you for doing that, because I would not be here today. And so that's where my positive is at my Bethel experiences. Social work department, the professors, as well as just the students. I've come to be able to talk to them and converse with them and not be afraid to leave. And that's something I never thought I was ever going to feel, and especially at Bethel. So, I just ask if any of you out there are allies or identify that way, let it be known. I'm not saying you have to wear rainbow and sing Lady Gaga. Just present yourself, and you never know who's out there feeling completely alone. And you can really make a big difference. Thank you.
And I was an art minor. My story begins when I was really young. I've kind of always known, especially when I started, getting to the age when boys start liking girls. Usually, I started liking boys. It's very typical, and I kind of had an idea even before then, just kind of more drawn to them. Towards Ben. And so yeah, I grew up in a Christian home. My family was fairly conservative. I wouldn't say to the extent of pools, and I haven't been treated as isolatedly as him, or she, excuse me. So as growing up, I struggled with my thoughts, mostly because my parents had told me that it was a sin, and I hadn't really read the passages in the Bible that supposedly talk about it, and that didn't happen until quite later in my life. But I'd always struggled with it, and it didn't really make sense to me what my parents were saying, because it felt very normal to me. I had a friend who kind of got me into reading the Bible, and once I did that, things did change quite a bit. I ended up looking at my sexuality as bad, though, and I also dualized it, though. I did something kind of weird where I had feelings for guys, but I felt like those were good, and a lot of good had come from them, where I had grown to be a better person out of liking certain guys, but I also had turned against my sexual side and said, this is bad, it says homosexual, and so I thought homo love was good and homo sex was bad, so it doesn't make sense. And I kind of figured that out once I got to Bethel. I kind of had this logical breakthrough where I thought, wait a second, love eventually leads to sex. It's how it happens in most relationships, more romantic relationships. So I went through high school, and I had every intention coming to Bethel and just being straight. I didn't really think about it too much. I didn't want to. I didn't want it to come up. I didn't want it to matter. But it doesn't really work that way. So when I came here, though, I eventually I ended up thinking about things a lot, and because I figured out that I was having the logical problem of feeling positive feelings towards men and also negative feelings towards sex, I ended up doing a lot of research. I ended up looking online and doing a lot of reading. I ended up dating someone for a while, someone who goes to seminary. It was a very good relationship. It lasted for just a couple months, and but I learned a lot about what I believed. I learned about what I thought about Scripture. I kind of delved deeper into things more than I had before. I'd been reading Scripture my whole life as a kind of a rule book or a manual, and it's not that. It's a story. It's a story about God and His relation to creation. It's moving, and it's a lot different than how I looked at it, and I read it, and so I was like, I read it, and so therefore it exists, and I kind of just took my own interpretation as it was. And I think I caused myself a lot of harm by doing that. But in my freshman year, I grew a lot. I changed a lot. I started thinking about things more than I had before, and I learned a lot about myself. Sophomore year, things always change between freshman and sophomore year, where you kind of figure out who your friends are, you change your setting, you change everything. I think I got really comfortable where I was, and I finally had a situation where I felt like I had all the friends that I knew would be the kind of friends that you know are going to be with you once you leave college, the kind of friends that you expect to be there for the rest of your life. And because I felt like I was comfortable, I decided, I thought about it a bit. I looked on my Facebook and I went through my Facebook friends. I was like, would they care? Would they care? And in the end, I was just like, nobody cares. It doesn't even matter. It only matters what I think. If someone gets hurt, it means they didn't really, love me enough to stand by me. And even if people disagree, and I expected people to disagree, people still disagree. I just need people who are there for me, and that's how it's been. It's people stick by you if they really love you. And so I decided to come out partway through my sophomore year, and slowly to some friends, and over time I got a lot of good friends who were there for me, and I could talk to about anything, which is something I don't think I had before. And I kind of went in deeper into my feelings and breaking down every part of my life that kind of screwed me up in some ways. I feel like I've kind of been screwed over by religion a little bit, but I've also never thought that God didn't exist. Never felt like God had abandoned me. As much as even as much as I read in the Bible, I didn't feel like He would. And so, at the same time as I came out, I also ended up getting into another relationship, which lasted for about a year, and I learned a lot more from that one. I learned about being in a relationship in general. I learned about what it means to actually love and to sacrifice and to discipline myself, and kind of realize the effort that it takes to truly love someone. And as well, I kind of became more known as out on campus to some people. But I had a good time, but I also figured out that I still had a lot to learn about myself.
A little higher.
Still was becoming myself. I was,
Don't think.
still learning a lot about who I needed to be. And I guess what I wanted to be in the future, where God was taking me. I guess I'm in the post of that. I'm still learning about myself. I'm still spending a lot of time trying to figure out what I want for myself. And as well, I think my family has learned a lot from the situation. I don't think anyone in my family was really pro-gay, gung-ho kind of people, but I think they've had to learn because of the situation I put them in. I've kind of forced them into with being in a relationship and bringing someone into the family and saying this is someone who's really important to me. And I think if you ask some of my family members, they'd say yes, homosexuality is probably still a sin, but they would say that they support me, that they love me, and that in some ways it had to override it. It had to say, I want my son to be happy. I want my brother to grow. I want to be in a healthy relationship. I think my family has been very much there for me. Even in times when I felt isolated by my family, I still think they're always going to be there for me. Yeah, I'm also a very open person. Talk to me about things more. I'm very nervous and I'm safe right now, so this is not